New driveway, new adventures. The wheels of Mateo's skateboard sang a smooth song on the pristine asphalt of the driveway, a ribbon of perfection. Gone were the treacherous cracks, the annoying pebbles, replaced by pure skateboarding potential. He kicked off, the breeze a playful hand through his dark, cropped hair, his grin wide. In his mind, he was already a pro, a gravity-defying artist of the half-pipe. Maple Street slumbered in the afternoon heat. The sun had turned the lawns a brittle gold, driving everyone indoors to seek refuge. A lone robin trilled from an oak bough, a familiar melody against the silence. Even Whiskers, Mrs. Henderson's ever-present feline sentinel on the porch railing, had vanished. Mateo pumped, gathering speed, his focus laser-locked on mastering the ollie. Weeks he'd dedicated, poring over online tutorials, yet the trick remained stubbornly elusive. He set his feet, flexed his knees, and snapped the tail. The board lifted, a mere suggestion of flight. Balance abandoned him, he stumbled, the board rocketing away. Ugh, he groaned, cradling his stinging elbow. Disappointment threatened to engulf him. Success burned in his gut, he craved it. He pictured his dad's encouraging face, the thrill of impressing him, imagined making friends at the skate park. He retrieved his board, the wood radiating warmth from the sun. A deep breath centered him, the coarse grip tape a tactile anchor. He'd conquer this. Again and again, if necessary. He wouldn't be defeated. A quick peek towards the house, please, no spectators, especially not of the laughing variety. The thought brought a flush to his cheeks. He just needed to land it. The watchful eye. The small wheels of Mateo's skateboard rattled against the asphalt, a sound that grated on Mrs. Crabtree's ears like nails on a chalkboard. From her perch behind the lace-curtained window, she watched him. His bright yellow T-shirt was a flagrant violation of the neighborhood's unspoken dress code, a code of muted colors and sensible shoes that she upheld with unwavering vigilance. Mrs. Crabtree's lips pursed into a permanent frown. Her face, a roadmap of wrinkles etched by years of disapproval, was set in its usual sour expression. The boy, Mateo, was at it again, weaving down the sidewalk with a recklessness that made her clutch the HOA rulebook to her chest. Page 3, Section 2, Paragraph 7. Noise pollution and endangerment of pedestrian safety are strictly prohibited. She envisioned him colliding with poor Mr. Henderson, sending his prize-winning petunias flying. Mateo, oblivious to her scrutiny, attempted a clumsy ollie near the curb. He wobbled, nearly lost his balance, then recovered with a whoop of laughter. The sound was like a pebble thrown into the still pond of Mrs. Crabtree's meticulously ordered world, creating ripples of irritation. He was always so loud, so carefree. So unlike the quiet, obedient children of her day. He glanced up, his eyes meeting hers through the window. Embarrassment flushed his cheeks. He mumbled something, a barely audible sorry, then awkwardly pushed off, disappearing down the street, the rhythmic rattle of his skateboard fading into the distance. Mrs. Crabtree remained at the window, her gaze lingering on the empty sidewalk, the rulebook still clutched tightly in her hand. The silence, though welcome, felt incomplete, as if a disturbance lingered in the air. A complaint and a confrontation. Martha Crabtree marched across the manicured lawn, separating her property from David Jones's. The sun beat down, turning the meticulously applied hairspray into a helmet around her head. She clutched her purse like a shield. David was hosing down his son, little Leo, after a boisterous session of sidewalk chalk art. Leo giggled, dodging the spray with surprising agility. "Mr. Jones." Martha's voice sliced through the air, sharp and demanding. David sighed inwardly, turning off the hose. Leo, sensing the shift in atmosphere, clung to his father's leg. "Mrs. Crabtree, good afternoon. Is everything all right?" "All right?" "No, Mr. Jones, everything is far from all right. I've been observing your, shall we say, driveway since its unfortunate completion." She gestured with a gloved hand. "It's undersized. Noticeably so. It barely accommodates a single vehicle. It's a flagrant violation, I'm sure, of several HOA regulations, not to mention an eyesore." David squatted down, putting a reassuring hand on Leo's shoulder. He rose, forcing a smile. "Mrs. Crabtree, I understand your concern, but I assure you the driveway meets all city codes. The contractors checked and the permits were approved." "City codes?" Martha scoffed. "This is a community. We have standards. My azaleas alone are worth more than that sliver of asphalt. It diminishes property values, Mr. Jones, everyone's property values." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a near hiss. "I intend to report this." David's calm facade cracked. "Report what, Mrs. Crabtree? A driveway that's perfectly legal? Leave it alone." His voice was low, a warning rumble that made Leo flinch. 911 emergency. I've told you before, David, Mrs. Crabtree's voice, already shrill, ratcheted up another notch. That driveway is a menace. Someone's going to get hurt. Mr. Jones sighed, running a hand over his thinning hair. Martha, we've been over this. It's perfectly up to code. Mateo, kicking a loose pebble across the driveway, felt his cheeks burn. He hated these confrontations. Mrs. Crabtree always smelled faintly of mothballs and disapproval. Code schmode, she scoffed, pulling out her phone. I'm calling 911. This is a public safety hazard. Mr. Jones's jaw dropped. Martha, don't be ridiculous. But she was already dialing, her voice rising in pitch with each number she punched. Yes, I need to report a dangerous situation, a driveway, yes, at 14 Oak Street. It's far too narrow and poses a significant risk to pedestrians and drivers. I want it rectified immediately, and frankly, someone needs to be held accountable. Yes, I believe the owner should be arrested for endangering the public. Mateo stared, his pebble forgotten. Arrested? His dad? Mr. Jones looked completely stunned, his face paling under the afternoon sun. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The only sound was Mrs. Crabtree's increasingly frantic voice, painting a picture of impending doom caused by a few inches of concrete. The air hung thick with the absurdity of it all, and Mateo felt a knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. Arrival of the law. The screech of tires sliced through the afternoon quiet. 2 patrol cars, lights flashing but sirens silent, parked haphazardly on the already congested street. David sighed, the knot in his stomach tightening. Mateo, who had been attempting a wobbly handstand against the garage door, lost his balance and tumbled onto the lawn, face flushed with embarrassment. 2 officers emerged, their expressions a mix of boredom and suspicion. Mrs. Crabtree, emboldened by their arrival, puffed out her chest. Officer, she declared, pointing a trembling finger at David's driveway, this monstrosity is a clear violation. It's too narrow. It's practically unusable. The officers exchanged a look. One, a young woman with tired eyes, pulled out a notepad. Ma'am, could you please explain the situation? Mrs. Crabtree launched into a tirade about property values, neighborhood aesthetics, and the general decline of society. The young officer scribbled something, her lips twitching slightly. Her partner, a burly man with a handlebar mustache, wandered over to the driveway, a measuring tape dangling from his hand. He knelt, his brow furrowed in concentration as he hooked the tape to the edge of the asphalt. Mateo, forgetting his earlier embarrassment, crept closer, his eyes wide with curiosity. What are you doing, sir? He asked. The officer looked up, startled. Just making sure everything's up to code, son. He gave David a look that said, seriously? This is what we're dealing with? David just shrugged, a grim smile playing on his lips. The absurdity of the situation was almost comical. Almost. Measuring the truth. The measuring tape slithered across the hot asphalt, Sergeant Miller's face a study in focused concentration. Beside him, Officer Reyes jotted notes, sunlight flashing from her lenses. Mateo scuffed his shoe against a dislodged piece of gravel. Mrs. Crabtree remained a statue of disapproval, arms clamped tight, gaze sharp as a raptor's. 32 feet, 4 inches, Miller declared, straightening his back. A choked sound rattled from Mrs. Crabtree. Preposterous. It's shy of 30. I took the measurements myself. David scrubbed a hand through his hair, a weary gesture. Mrs. Crabtree, we've addressed this. The blueprints stipulate a minimum width. Blueprints are fallible, she retorted, her voice gaining volume. This whole driveway is an abomination, and far too cramped. She punctuated her outburst with a piercing stare at Mateo, who felt his cheeks burn. Reyes cross-referenced her notes. Ma'am, per the HOA guidelines furnished, the driveway satisfies the minimum width. We also verified with city planning before our arrival. Mrs. Crabtree sputtered, her complexion deepening to a furious rose. Oh, I'm sure you're all complicit. Spinning sharply, she retreated, a low grumble about plots and the neighborhood's deterioration trailing behind her. A tide of humiliation washed over Mateo, his eyes stinging with familiar tears. He loathed being the focal point of this drama. He longed for her to simply go away. He dreamed of a life, a home, somewhere else, a lesson in kindness. Mateo's lower lip trembled. He scuffed his sneaker against the pavement, avoiding Officer Ramirez's gaze. The officer knelt, bringing himself to Mateo's level. The leather of his belt creaked softly as he shifted his weight. "Hey, Mateo, right? It's nice to meet you." Mateo mumbled a barely audible "hi." "Your dad seems like a good man," Officer Ramirez continued, his voice gentle. "Sometimes good people make mistakes. It doesn't make them bad." He paused, letting the words sink in. A mockingbird chirped from a nearby oak tree, the sound unusually clear in the tense silence. Mateo finally looked up, his eyes wide and glistening. "But why did she yell?" "Sometimes people get scared or confused and they react in ways that aren't very nice," the officer explained. "But the best thing we can do is try to be kind even when others aren't kind to us." "Do you know what that means, Mateo?" Mateo nodded slowly, considering the idea. He thought about how he felt when his little sister accidentally broke his favorite race car. He'd been angry, but then he remembered she didn't mean to. "Kindness can be like sunshine," Officer Ramirez said, smiling. "It can brighten up even the cloudiest day." He stood up, towering over Mateo once more. "You remember that, okay? And you be kind to everyone, even Mrs. Henderson. It might just surprise you." Retreat and reflection. "Perhaps," Officer Miller said, his voice a low rumble, "consulting the HOA regulations would clarify the permissible dimensions for driveways, ma'am. We don't typically handle neighborhood disputes of this nature." Officer Johnson nodded in agreement, his hand resting near his belt. The implication hung heavy in the humid air. They weren't going to arrest Mr. Jones for the width of his driveway. Mrs. Crabtree's face tightened, the carefully applied lipstick emphasizing the pinched disapproval around her mouth. "I see," she said, each word clipped and precise. She turned abruptly, her floral dress billowing slightly as she marched back toward her pristine, beige house. The slam of her front door echoed in the sudden silence. David Jones watched her go, a weary sigh escaping his lips. The officers offered him sympathetic nods before returning to their patrol car. As the cruiser pulled away, a new resolve hardened in Jones's eyes. He surveyed his driveway, the freshly laid gravel catching the afternoon sun. "Too narrow, huh?" he muttered. An idea sparked in his mind. He'd build a small ramp where the driveway met the sidewalk, making it even easier for Imani to navigate her wheelchair. He grabbed his tools, the metallic clang a promise of action, a defiant counterpoint to Mrs. Crabtree's complaints. He had a daughter to think of. Skateboarding with a smile. The wheels sang on the fresh plywood, a higher, happier pitch than Mateo expected. He pumped his legs, feeling the ramp's curve swallow him, then spit him out a little higher each time. A grin stretched across his face, wider than the driveway itself. He was doing it. Really doing it. Each arc felt like a tiny victory. The butterflies that had plagued him all morning transformed into a giddy lightness. He even managed a shaky kick turn at the top, the board wobbling precariously before he righted himself with a whoop. Officer Ramirez's cruiser rolled slowly down the street. Mateo, emboldened by his newfound confidence, waved. Ramirez, a hint of a smile playing on his lips, gave a short, almost imperceptible nod in return. Mateo felt a surge of pride. Maybe, just maybe, the neighborhood wasn't as scary as he thought. He heard a faint snick from next door. Mrs. Crabtree's lace curtains twitched ever so slightly. He couldn't see her face, but he knew she was there, watching. He straightened up, pushing down the wave of self-consciousness that threatened to engulf him. He pictured his dad's encouraging smile, the hours spent building the ramp, the shared laughter. He took a deep breath, pushing off again. This time, he added a little flair, a slight shift of his weight, a subtle extension of his arm. He imagined her face, slowly morphing from a grimace to something, well, maybe not a smile, but perhaps a flicker of curiosity. He kept skateboarding, the rhythmic whoosh of the wheels a steady beat against the quiet hum of the afternoon. It wasn't just about the ramp, or the tricks, or even the wave from Officer Ramirez. It was about proving to himself, and maybe even to Mrs. Crabtree, that joy could exist even in a driveway some people considered too narrow.